Road accidents involving heavy vehicles are a daily occurrence. This is by no means impossible to repair. The result will be a first-rate vehicle repaired not only economically, but in an environmentally friendly way. The technician now checks for any vertical bends in the frame side rails. To begin with, the vehicle is leveled both at the front and rear. The spirit level is moved along the frame and checks are made for height differences between the left and right side rails. When at all possible, as in this case where the frame is exposed, a straight edge and supports with a magnetic base are used to determine the exact position of the deformation. The side rail is anchored to the floor beams both at the front and rear by frame hooks and chains. A vertical press is placed directly under the vertical bend. The frame is then overcorrected by slightly overpressing the damaged section. It's better to use caution rather than to use too much force and end up with a hump in the frame. Heat treatment is then applied to the straightened section. When cooled, the repaired frame compresses and retains its original shape. With this technique, the technician has complete control over the straightening procedure. This is a big advantage as the stretched section can be straightened without building in further tension and causing other deformations. When the temperature of the material has dropped to approximately 450 degrees Celsius, the process is speeded up by cooling with water to obtain a quicker result. In this case, the required effect is obtained immediately. To establish if the frame is twisted, two hydraulic cylinders are connected to the same pump. These are then positioned under the front axle. The vehicle is lifted until the wheels are clear of the floor. The frame is then leveled at the rear. The technician now checks to see how much the frame is twisted and measures the difference between the side rails. To make this job easier, the spirit level is hung from the frame by magnetic hangers. The value is noted on the test report. By using two cylinders connected to each other, the same effect is achieved as if the vehicle had been hoisted up at its center point. We now see the equipment required for straightening the frame. Principles governing the use of equipment are contained in the instruction manual. Working practice must be in accordance with the JOSM manual to avoid injury to the operator and damage to the equipment. Frame hooks equipped with flange protectors are mounted on the frame. The counterstay is adjusted against the frame web. The chain is anchored to the floor and tightened. Notice that the chain passes over a roller, enabling the force to be equally distributed on both sides of the chain. The vertical presses and anchors are placed at the front and rear of the vehicle, diagonally opposite to each other, so that the frame can be twisted both in the rear and at the front. A flange support is fitted for protection. This helps to distribute the load so that the force is absorbed in the frame web. The technician measures the angle of twist. To begin with, the frame is twisted approximately 3 degrees per meter. If the frame is 6 meters long, it is twisted 18 degrees, half at the front and half in the rear. An induction heater is now used to take away the tension in the cross members. When the press force is eventually released, the frame stays in a correct position and does not resume its former damaged state, which is usual in cold straightening. Practical experience proves that the bigger the cross member, the more important it is to heat the damaged area and remove tension so that the frame can revert to its original shape. After the pressure is released and the frame is free of tension, the vehicle is measured once again and the result noted on the test report. Repair of the side bend and damaged flange remains to be done. We begin with the repair of localized deformation on the side rail. Before we begin pressing and applying heat treatment, a straight edge is used to determine where the material has stretched the most. After the frame has been pressed to its correct position, it is heated to shrink the stretched material. It is straightened with a 40-ton C-clamp, which can even be used for riveting. The C-clamp and counterstay are now used. During the straightening procedure, checks are made with a straight edge to ensure that enough force has been applied by the press. Heat treatment is then applied to the flange so that the material will shrink. When heating frame material, never exceed 650 degrees Celsius and always check the temperature with a thermometer gauge. When the temperature has dropped to 450 degrees Celsius, water is used to accelerate the cooling process. The result is carefully checked. To repair the damaged flange, we use a 10-ton C-clamp and straightening set. The C-clamp is made ready to be attached to the damaged section. The area is heated to 650 degrees Celsius. The C-clamp is quickly moved to one side and the press applied. After the temperature of the material has dropped, water is used to speed up the cooling process. The result, as we can see, is perfect. The next job is to measure the whole frame for sideways bend. Measuring results are noted in the test report. To obtain the best result, Josum's laser-assisted measuring system for frame axles and wheels is used. A wheel clamp is fixed to the rear wheel, and then a laser projector is attached. The clamp is set up in such a way so that one adjusting arm is horizontal and the other vertical. A camber gauge is also attached to the wheel clamp spindle to enable adjustment of the spindle horizontally. To determine if the spindle is horizontal, the camber gauge is set to 0 and the wheel clamp adjusted until the bubble is level. Self-centering frame gauges are hung in place on the frame, and gauge extensions are fitted. Afterwards, a measuring scale is put on each extension. The laser is lined up by means of the horizontal adjusting arm so that the same scale value is obtained in both the front and rear, in this case 100. If the frame is straight, the same value is indicated on the other scales. It is easy to detect any deviation in the frame by using these basic measurements. The faulty section is straightened until the same reading is obtained on all the scales according to the manufacturer's specified tolerances. Josum's patented press pull trolleys, JO 2000, manufactured in aluminum alloy with built-in hydraulics, are now put to use. Once again, safe working practice is described in the Josum instruction manual, and in this way, personal injury and damage to the equipment are avoided. The trolleys are on wheels and are simple to move around the workshop. Even in restricted spaces, they can be easily placed in the right position without dismantling other parts of the vehicle. When the trolley is in place, the wheels are retracted. 2 locking devices are inserted in the floor beam and the equipment is anchored to the floor. The straight edge is used to check where the side rails were bent and consequently stretched. To apply heat treatment to this section later, the area of maximum deformation is marked with chalk. Force is used to press back the deformation. Slight overpressing is necessary to counteract the elasticity in the frame. The same rule applies as before. It is better to use caution than be overzealous with the press. If too much pressure is applied on a bend, all the equipment must be readjusted and the repair procedure started from scratch. Heat treatment is now used to shrink the stretched sections of the frame which were previously marked with chalk. After the hydraulic pressure is released, a final check is made to establish that the frame is straight. After straightening the vehicle, don't forget to check that the wheels and axles are correctly aligned. This procedure can be seen in the JOSM video on wheel and axle alignment.